apparently we're live, but I can't really tell. It doesn't look right to me. Technology is failing. Oh, there we are. Okay, that's better. Ooh, so much better. Oh man, it's like, what's going on?
There's always drama here at the Hoboken Historical Museum.
So, yes, hi everybody, I'm Rand Hoppe. I am the Archivist Collections Manager at the Hoboken Historical Museum. And
I'm Bob Foster, I'm the director person.
He is.
And we're really happy to join you guys again. We've been doing this, I think, every 2 weeks.
Yep.
So it's Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and we're here to show you special objects that are in our collection.
Yeah.
What do we call this again?
Every object tells a story.
Okay. What do you got? What's your story?
What's my
your
story?
object?
What's my object? All right. Hang on. Let me do the thing with the thing. Okay, we're good. So my first object is. I will hold it up to the camera. It is Windsor Glide Wax for the dance floor.
Okay, I didn't know we were dancing tonight.
But it is an unopened box, canister, I suppose this would be, right? And what's important about this is that this is from the Windsor Wax factory in Hoboken, which is down on Newark.
Observer Highway.
Observer Highway.
When you come into Hoboken, you go underneath the
train,
the overpass.
Yep.
You're coming into town.
That's right.
And what's the street? It's kind of, is it Harrison? Is it Jackson and Observer Highway on the right-hand side?
Oh man,
it's been there forever.
It's been there forever.
Okay,
but
it's shut down. It's no longer there.
I thought it would be
as a business.
I thought it would be a fun thing just to take a look at a photo that we have.
Sure.
Of it in our collection. So I'm going to go to the collections website and put in the word Windsor, which you guys should be seeing. Please feel free to say hello in the chat room. We will respond.
Do you guys know where Windsor Wax is, where the building is on Observer Highway, right by the Mighty Fine building?
Well, here they are. Here they are having a sad fire in the 30s. I know.
Okay.
I know, that's not great. But they are manufacturers of floor wax.
Right.
And the other picture that we have of it, I mean, I could go to Street View, which I do enjoy doing. We have this shot from the trains, and if you look right here, if you can, I hope my cursor is coming through, you can see the R Wax Co. So it is something that, it is a building and a factory that backed up right to the train tracks. Let me.
Can I read the directions here?
Well, yeah.
Sure. It says just sprinkle a little glide. Glide is in quotes here, over the floor, and the dancer's feet will do the rest. I kind of like that.
Oh man.
Windsor Glide is highly recommended for shuffleboards, industrial uses for chutes and slides.
Wow.
Okay.
So that was the one thing that we know of from Windsor Wax, is that they were the Shuffleboard Wax company. And that would be the shuffleboard or the bowling.
Yeah, we're talking about the shuffleboard you would see in bars.
Correct.
Where you have those little metal discs.
Right.
And you slide them down. I actually walked in there probably in the 1980s when they were still manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
And I met, I can't remember, I'll say Jimmy Windsor,
right,
who is of the Windsor family. And he was kind of, downsizing, and he made a donation of this, I believe, this can.
Oh, nice.
And he also had like print blocks, which are in our collection somewhere, which were for advertisements for Windsor Wax. So there's little halftones.
Sure.
And there are pictures of little kids sort of sprinkling it and dancing. And it was supposedly this guy who was probably in his 60s, 70s, as a little kid in these advertisements.
Oh,
And
okay.
he was really proud of
That's
them.
great. That's great.
And he kind of related that the downfall of the business was that apparently in the day, every military base across the country had these shuffleboard games.
Yes.
And that as they downsized military, depots and PXs and
Yep.
things like that,
Yep.
that they no longer had these shuffleboard
Right,
games.
right.
And but most people might remember them in older style bars.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a comeback.
There is.
But-
There's one in the apartment building across the street.
That's right. That's right. We should probably, that needs a little glide, actually.
It
So we
does.
might bring it over.
Yeah.
But again, we've really highlighted a lot of things that were manufactured here in Hoboken.
Right.
Obviously, we're close to shipping and trucking and train yards, so
Right.
and a good labor force. So manufacturing was king in Hoboken.
Yeah.
And Windsor Wax was one of the specific trades
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
So very nice,
Yeah.
very nice.
But I know somebody who actually got themselves one of the shuffleboard games.
Oh, really?
And it was manufactured in Union City.
That's right.
So there
that's
was
right.
a whole,
Yeah,
a nexus.
At the top of the hill by Washington Park,
That's right.
there was a shuffleboard company.
Yeah.
It's now condos.
Yeah.
But I can remember if you were in the know, you would go by there on a trash night and you could you could get some of the extra shuffleboard wood
Oh, wow.
laminated pieces
Oh, wow.
and people would use them for cutting boards.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool.
That's
So
great.
anyway,
That's great.
probably a little obsessing here on
That's
shuffleboard.
what we do.
But that's what we like to do, definitely, definitely. So I'm segueing again back into manufacturing. We have
Sure.
a couple objects here. Some people might recognize these. This would be known as the Sextant.
There you
And
go.
these were, this was used for navigational purposes.
Right.
Now it's all been taken over by GPS and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you could, trust me, I could not figure out how to do this. It's kind of like a slide rule, kind of. How do you explain it? But nautical people, like someone like Frank Hanavan, would probably know how to use this.
Okay.
And you would sort of set your longitude and latitude by looking at the stars and or the moon, things like that.
Right.
And the reason we're showing you this is that these were manufactured by probably the largest manufacturing company of measuring devices, and that was right here in Hoboken, Keufel and Esser.
Right.
We hear Keufel and Esser, or more of the Keufel, pronounced many different ways.
Yes.
But I'm going to stick with the Keufels.
Right.
And they had buildings here in Hoboken. Of course, we should have looked up all these addresses, but there was a building at 3rd and Grand.
Yeah.
And then what's now known as Clock Tower Apartments would
right.
be going west 1 block and going north would be what? 3rd and Jefferson and 4th
Right.
and Jefferson. And that company had, in a sense, like 2 blocks of Hoboken.
They did, yeah.
And now the older section, I think, would be known as the Grand Adams,
Right.
which is a condominium complex. And could we go to the catalog and just sort of
Yes,
show how many
sure.
things we have from Keufel and Esser?
Let me,
And again, these items come in these really beautiful boxes, and it almost takes an engineer how to open the box
Yeah.
and how to put it back.
all right. So I'm gonna-
Okay?
again,
And Rand is just going to look up Keufel. Spelling could be an issue.
let's see what happens.
Yeah. And I'm going to pick out another device.
Yeah, so we have 564 items.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
These Keufel and Esser artifacts are one of the favorites of David Webster, who is our collections manager. And we did do an exhibit on the theme of Keufel and Esser, probably going back about 10 years.
Yeah.
And we had engineers and surveyors come from all over the country.
Right.
And I would say we get about a phone call once a week, every 2 weeks,
yeah.
about
Yeah.
requesting information about these. They did do a beautiful catalog, which looks like a mini Bible with all the different offerings they had. They did everything from slide rules, if people remember what they are, to different tracing papers, to more elaborate measuring devices. This is known as a Statometer, and this was...
Oh, hang on, let me bring the camera back up. Yep.
Okay.
I'm showing,
Sorry.
showing everybody
Yep.
the browser. Oh, that didn't, I'm not sure if that was working. Okay, we're back.
So this is a Statometer, or of course it would come in this really elaborate presentation box. I don't know if you can see all this. Can you hold the Statometer
I
for
sure
a
can.
second?
Yep.
This is the box. It can only go in one way
Yep.
and one way out.
Right.
And there is a brief description on this. This is also used for measuring, I think, the heights of things.
Okay.
And many times would be used in military ballistic type things. If they were trying to blow a ship out of the water, they're trying to
Right.
figure out the distance
Wow.
and how to align, shall we say, the armistice to make this impact.
Wow.
So, but Keufel and Esser, very prominent company around the world.
Yeah.
And had a beautiful factory, and we're just really proud to have a lot of their equipment, and really want to thank David Webster for making that an important part of our collection. So that's what we got there. I should mention Keufel and Esser. Keufel, they were partners, both German, and they, Keufel family owned one of the beautiful houses on Castle Point. Can't give you the address, but there is a stained glass window there that you can see. You know, you see it from the street, but unless you're in the lobby of the building, you don't really see Keufel that well. It
interesting.
needs to be backlit almost.
Right.
It looks kind of dark. And it's now a fraternity. I think it's one that's set back on the lawn on the east side of the street.
Right.
And that, as I understand it, the Keufels, when they closed the factory in the 70s, they actually donated the property to Stevens, and it is now a fraternity house.
Interesting. That's great.
And of course, many of you would know that Clock Tower Apartments is the original factory from Keufel and Esser. Not the original, but an early one. The original one is the Grand Adams, but the another one built before World War I is now Clock Tower Apartments, and that has a special status that it's considered one of the first industrial buildings in the United States that's rehabbed into residential apartments.
Right.
And there is a film that we have here in the museum that you can watch.
It's on our
Can
YouTube
It's
channel.
also on our YouTube channel, but don't go there now, you're here.
That's right.
And it's a film that was made with PSE&G, and they were one of the partners in the conversion of the old K&E factory into
Right.
residential apartments.
Right.
And there are, as I understand it, a few people who still live there who are originals. Family members from the 70s.
Yeah.
And it shows them happy going into their new apartment.
Right.
And the building was adjusted slightly to make, I think they pulled the windows back a little bit so you have balconies.
Yep.
And it's considered, I believe the other one factory where it's rehabbed into apartments in the 70s is in the Boston area. So they always highlight Hoboken and this other complex. Again, not a K&E complex, but important that this sets the trend for why tear down industrial buildings.
Right.
A lot of them are built better than, shall we say, residential buildings,
Yeah.
especially wood frame.
Yeah.
And you got a sturdy building there. And the K&E name is still very well known. It is no longer, I mean, someone may be using the name abroad, but it's not manufacturing in this country anymore. And most of that equipment has totally changed.
Yes.
But transits, tape measures, papers, it's all K&E.
Yeah.
And again, one of the larger employers here in Hoboken at the time.
Right.
So
And they had spiders.
They did. Yeah, we could actually do
We
a
could do
whole thing on
spiders.
Caney. I guess since you opened the spider door.
Let's just briefly do it.
Apparently, in a transit, which is used for surveying
Right.
and for gun sites,
Yes.
you would have a scope
Yep.
and you would have kind of a pattern, just a crosshatch pattern. And you wanted that to be as accurate as possible. And so for many years, before they got into like chemically etching this type of leveling, they actually used spider webs, that meaning the strands from spiders.
Yep.
So they had a crew, it was like 2 or 3 women, because they were the most patient, obviously, and
Right.
they would harvest spider webs and use them, put them in between 2 pieces of glass, and they would become the sight lines, the level lines in transits or in gun sites.
Yeah.
And they were known as the Spider Ladies.
Right.
And one of our early museum members was Anita Heimbrook. She has passed on. And she was one of the Spider Ladies.
Yeah.
And she, as a sidebar, she photographed Hoboken.
Right.
She was a member of the K&E Photo
Photo
Club and photographed Hoboken at a very important transitional time
Yeah.
in the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
And we have actually had an exhibit of her personal photography.
Yeah.
But Anita Heimbrook was one of the Spider Ladies.
That's right.
And they would talk about, you would go by the room where the Spider Ladies were operating, and they would be making little strands and cutting these.
Wow.
And people would walk by going, what the hell are they doing? Because you couldn't really see the spider strands.
Yeah,
and everyone
yeah.
thought they were a little,
Right.
something fishy was going on in the spider room.
Yeah.
But, so again, just Caney just
Totally.
brings up so many stories.
Fascinating stuff,
And, sometimes some of the equipment seems really obscure because the technology has changed so much.
Right.
But in the day, they made all the specialized
Yeah.
equipment
Yeah,
for measuring.
Yeah.
I mean, slide rules. Who's using a slide
No,
rule now?
not me.
Right?
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. Get that calculator going.
Right.
Anyway,
Paul Nashemkin is saying that, all the bomb sites during World War II
yes.
were K&E Spider.
Sure.
stuff like
And
that.
World War One.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were in it for both. Very interesting because we have correspondence from Keufel and Esser, and they had special passes to go back and forth to Germany.
Oh, wow.
They're building, shall we say, equipment for our guys,
Yeah.
but they're visiting family in Germany.
Wow.
So they needed special permission to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that,
yeah.
so they weren't playing for both teams in a sense
right,
on
right,
there.
right.
But yeah, thank you, Paul.
All right. What's next? Well,
You got something heavy?
I do. I have something heavy and round.
Okay.
So let's start out with. I'll start out the story with this. Let's see. So at least so it's legible. I'll bring it in. It's in. It's up. It is a coal cover
Okay.
or a drain cover of some sort.
I
right?
think you're right the first time.
Yeah,
You probably need to explain what a coal cover is, though.
Well, people would have coal delivered to their homes.
Right?
They needed a chute in the sidewalk.
Right?
The coal truck would I'm going to put it down.
Oh, darn. I was just trying to see how long you could hold
And
that.
then,
It probably weighs about 35 pounds.
but
Okay.
so they would have the coal truck would come by with the delivery of coal.
Right.
They'd remove the cover off of the sidewalk and slurp it down into
That's right.
the basement so
Sure.
that they could put it into their furnace.
Right.
Right.
Right. And your interest in showing this
It's because
you want me to hold it for a little?
No, it's okay. It's the Fagin Ironworks, Fagan Ironworks, and Lawrence Fagin was one of the mayors of Hoboken. He was the 20th person to be the mayor, but he held the 22nd office because people duplicated and switched off. So
You looked that up.
I did.
Okay.
And the thing about him is that he had this ironworks that was, I believe, I think it might have been in Hoboken for a while, but then it moved over to like Tonley Avenue area.
Okay,
And
Jersey City.
Yeah, in Jersey City. And the thing about him is that I find fascinating is, and I'm gonna go to the videotape here.
You're huffing a little.
I am.
On that thing, I can tell. The mask and lifting up the coal cover.
Exactly. Yep. So let me. Oh shoot. I can't do it. Can you vamp a little bit while I make a quick change?
Sure. Do you want me to move on to another object, or I think you know that. What a great last name, Fagin.
Yeah.
Okay, very evocative. But didn't he have a very nice residence here in
Well, that's
Hoboken?
what I'm trying to get to, but I made a
Okay.
change. I made a change to my system, and now I'm not going to be able to show it in the way that I wanted to.
Okay.
So just because it's always good. It's a good idea to change things in the last 15 minutes before you go
Yeah,
live.
exactly.
That's
Exactly. We like drama here
So-
at the Hoboken Historical Museum.
So let me go to the browser then and show you the Fagin. So there's our coal chute cover or drain cover.
We had a portrait of him there, right?
We did in the fantastic Just for Fun book that was published. But what he does have that really was really cool was he had this huge home
Right.
on the.
Are people seeing that now?
They are.
Okay, great. Yeah, so where
I
are
believe
we?
so. I hope so.
Where are we?
We are at hang on. We are at 10th and Hudson. So we're looking north.
And that's the west side of the street?
That's the west side of the street. So that is a large.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else like that on Hudson Street now,
No.
really, at least on that side of the street.
No, that's right. I mean,
And nice little cupola
Yeah.
widow's walk on top.
that's right.
And is there any remnants of that residence?
Well, that's the big setup, which is if you go to let me just go to Google Street View to show you guys. Come on, there's our little man. We go to Google Street View and we look at. That's the view that you were just seeing.
Really? So that
Apartment building.
Pre-World War II apartment building
That's
is
right.
on the corner,
That's right.
and we're
Heading
going
towards
down
Washington Street.
Right.
And here is the only remaining object from Mayor Fagin's home.
Okay, so what is that? That's from the kind of a
Like
gate post for
like
the
a-
fencing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
find that entertaining that
Yes.
thing is just there.
You are good tracking those details. Okay, but so that you were right. If you continue down a little bit, you'd be by the Elysian
The
Cafe.
Elysian Cafe, that's right.
Right.
Yep.
And in those buildings, if you go back to the street view, or is that
Sure.
those are very. It's hard to see with all the green growth, but those homes. They're single-family homes, but might have been broken up to apartments.
Yeah.
But they have really nice cast iron
They do.
porches.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And one of them, I think it is the one on the far right, was where Jerome Ragney and James Rado lived and wrote Hair, the
That's right.
musical.
That's right.
Okay. And I forget the name of their landlord, Cyrus
Wood?
Cyrus Wood,
Yeah.
who lived there, and for years you would just see Cyrus, who's a very tall
was tall,
guy,
yeah.
wore a prominent hat, and he had been, I believe, a tugboat captain.
Oh, did he really?
And he would sit on the porch
Yep.
and just kind of hang.
Yep.
And when they premiered Hair at one point, I believe it was in England,
Oh.
at one point for one showing, they sent Cyrus and his wife
his
over to
wife.
England,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
to see one of the premieres there.
That's great.
Yes, it played at the Public Theater also,
Yeah.
but and then for many years, James Rado maintained that apartment and called it the Hair Museum.
Oh, nice.
And
Wow.
I was lucky enough to go down there a few times, and they had decoupaged floor, ceiling, bathtub,
Oh, my.
like with just all 60s
Oh, man.
visuals, like
Oh,
Rolling
man.
Stone covers with varnished and whatever. And it was kind of a secret museum.
Wow.
Sort of like the Hoboken Historical Museum.
Hey, wait a
just
minute.
Kidding,
No,
just
no,
kidding,
we're not a
just
secret.
kidding. Here at 1301 Hudson Street.
Right.
Okay.
But the other thing that just cracked me up about this, well,
We're back to Fagin.
we're back to Fagin.
Sorry
Yeah,
for
that's okay. No, that was a good one. Let me see if I can find this other photo, and I don't think I am. I'm going to be able to.
That's a beautiful portrait of him.
Oh,
And-
the drawing?
No, the color, well, there's that
Oh.
drawing. That's from a caricature series, right?
Yep, just for fun.
Just,
Yeah.
oh, that's what you were saying. And
Yeah.
that was by one of the newspapers?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's the mayor.
Right. Who took this photo? Do we know?
Does it say? I don't know. It does not say.
Okay. It's on display in Hoboken. What year is it around?
Probably, well, he was the mayor from 94 to 01.
Right. I could have it wrong, but I believe Dorothea Lange took that picture.
Oh, really?
And it's in City Hall.
Oh, that's
the
great.
original. We have a digital copy of
Yeah,
this,
we don't
right?
have the photo
Right.
itself.
So I think this is in Jimmy Farina's office.
Oh, that's
Whether they
great.
know it's by Dorothea Lange, but Dorothea Lange, very prominent photographer, has a show at the Museum of Modern Art right now,
Right.
but is really known for her socially concerned work,
Right.
which she did after she left Hoboken.
Yes.
But she did work for a famous portrait studio in New York and took some of those skills and applied them to Hoboken. And her mother worked at the library.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh,
I
that's
just
great.
wanted to mention that,
So,
that picture.
but the funny thing about the Fagin home
Yes.
was that I got an email from somebody doing some studies at Columbia University
Right.
around the turn of the year, back in January,
Pre-COVID.
pre-COVID.
Yeah,
and
seems like 20 years ago.
I know, that's right. And he was asking about this guy, Reich, who was a seller of zoo animals, of exotic animals.
Where's this going?
Well, I dove in and discovered that Mr. Reich is the person who actually built Mayor Fagin's home.
Okay.
That home was built by a guy who made a fortune selling and showing exotic animals.
Shame on him.
I know. Well,
so-
in retrospect, that's right. And so there's a big stable on the lot.
Okay.
And there's a photo that we have of the Quartet Club being built, and you can see the stable and how big
Right.
it was.
Right.
And
But he was really, so Fagin purchased this home. He didn't build it.
I think there was somebody
And-
even in between.
And he
like-
got it from the Reich guy.
Yeah,
Who sold
sold-
Siberian tigers.
Yes.
Okay.
And I found an article in Nature magazine
Right.
where he was where he was referred to as the operator of the Elysian Fields animal menagerie.
Which would have been across the street.
Right across the
I mean,
street.
the park is across
I
the
know.
street.
And then,
This needs further investigation. So we've gone from coal covers,
correct,
which says Fagin Ironworks,
correct.
to exotic animals.
Yes.
That's quite the leap.
It's
that's
every object tells a story.
right. Or part of a story. The story needs to be continued.
That's right.
Okay. We're good at starting the stories, but ending the stories can be a problem.
They never end.
Okay, so we're going to segue into something else.
Let's go.
Nothing to do with exotic animals. I think I mentioned even 2 weeks ago when we last did this, that there seems to be a lot of people going through things
Right.
on their shelf and, saying, hey, I'm stuck home, I might as well clean house a little bit,
Yes.
downsized.
Yes.
And so, lo and behold, only in between last time we spoke to you and this time, I got a shout out from a gentleman in New York City who said he had a book that we might be interested in. And I'm having a little trouble reading, but this is a book. It's titled The Campaigns of the Civil War in the United States, 1861 to 1865, by Mccain. Mccain or McCain. It's C-A-N-N. McCann, right. And so here's the book. Kind of pretty simple, and why generally we would not collect things just based on, shall we say, the Civil War,
No.
or World War I, or World War II, because they're kind of bigger than
Right.
our local history.
Right.
But it turns out that this gentleman, McCain, wrote the book. Okay?
Okay.
And I didn't even know that. And his name is Thomas McCann, and it says of Hoboken, New Jersey. Not sure if you're going to pick this up, but it's in small type.
Yeah, it's in small type.
It's small type.
That's cool.
But anyway, that's pretty cool. And then we've never heard of this person. Okay? I mean, and basically, there's a nice little, it's autographed by Mr. McCain, and it's also written to another individual. It's dedicated, handwritten notes.
Right.
And this guy lived in Hoboken. And let's see, what else do I have? I just got it in the mail today, so I was very excited.
Yeah.
So I don't have the whole story here. And it turns out Mr. McCain was served in the Civil War, lived in Hoboken, and within this copy are his pension papers from the Civil War.
Okay.
These are copies from 1962.
All right.
But they're from Washington, D.C., from the U.S. government. And so this paper is tied to the author of the book, and that's pretty neat. And then I just figured, I got to find out, what can I find out about this guy?
That's right.
And so I go, Rand, hey, what do we got? And he comes up with this. It's loose from the binding, so
Incredible.
I'm trying to be careful here. But this is saying
Evening News.
the
and
Evening
Hoboken.
News.
Yeah.
Turns out the Evening News was kind of like the Hudson Reporter of its day, in good days, or the Jersey Journal. And this was like a bound celebration anniversary piece,
Oh.
a bit of a vanity piece,
Okay.
because it does have bios of all the different players in
right.
Hoboken.
Right.
We're not going to really learn about the working class during this time,
No, and
but
it's a bunch of dudes.
it's a bunch of white dudes for sure, and not sure if they paid for these listings. I'm going to try to read a few lines of this. It says, Thomas McCain is a war veteran, having served over 4 years in the 19th Regiment of the New York Veteran Volunteers. And that's what he's writing about in this book.
Wow.
He took part in the campaigns of General Burnside in North Carolina and General Sheridan in the Shenandoah Valley. After returning from the war in 1866, he was appointed on the engineering staff of the Aqueduct Board in New York City and eventually moves into Hoboken. It goes on and on and on, but basically this is the guy who's in charge of main drainage in Weehawken and Hoboken. So he was trying to solve the flooding problems in the 1870s.
Man.
Okay, so obviously you can make a career out of solving the drain problem.
right.
And if anyone thinks those drain problems are new, like we have been having our 3 50-year storms in
Right.
3 weeks,
Right.
Mr. McCain was involved in that
Yes.
as an engineer. So I really want to thank Claude Seligman for sending this book.
Yeah, that's a great
And here it is, just a new artifact, and
Yeah.
we have a lot to learn. We never had heard of this individual.
Right.
And really the object kind of spurned the interest
Yeah.
and sort of the tunnel to sort of learn more about him.
Yeah.
And I have to say, some people will start with research on a topic, but then there are other people, such as myself, who kind of gets the artifact and gets inspired by the artifact to kind of follow the trail. You know, one is probably more logical than the other, but you know, you just go with the flow. Right. So again, thank you for this book. We'll treasure it, and I can't wait to read it. So that's
really cool.
That's kind of cool, I think.
Yeah.
So your turn.
Oh no, what do I have?
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I have. Hang on. Let's go to the shoe store.
Wow.
I'll hold this up and then I will put it down.
Okay, I'll hold and you talk.
No.
How's that? No?
You were the one who said you had a good story.
Okay. Oh, well, I can talk through it.
No,
Okay.
it's all right.
No, well, you started
I'll
off.
start it out. So this is something in our collection, and it is from Cusselux,
Yes, but
the fantastic Cusselux shoe store that was at 10th and Bloomfield,
correct,
which is where Anthony David's restaurant is now,
right?
and
And the tattoo parlor, right?
and the tattoo parlor.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
right.
kept going.
Yeah.
Kept going.
And the thing about Cusselux, I mean, we have quite a few items from Cusselux in our collection, other than the stool. But I know that, like, when I moved in here in '82, you know, it was the display windows were dusty and filled with all kinds of shoes from the 1950s, and our friend was in there. You know, the door would occasionally be open, and you'd get the sense that there was some effort at commerce. But
there were actually a lot of people who loved the Cusselux brothers. I
There we
believe
go.
there were 3 of them.
There we go.
Maybe more.
Wow.
And they always used to sit out in front of the store.
Yes.
And over time, those 3 brothers became one. And I believe the last brother was Sam.
Okay.
If you want to learn a lot more about the Cusselux brothers, a good friend of theirs was James Mestro, who runs the Guitar Bar.
Yes.
And we did have an event here once, and James spoke about the Cusselux, and it was hilarious. But my Cusselux story is that I went in there just kind of curious. And you weren't exactly welcomed when you went in there.
Right.
It was sort of like, what do you want?
Yeah.
And so I sort of pretended or went into the guise that I wanted shoes. Okay, which, you know, it's pretty obvious what you do when you walk in a shoe store.
That's right.
But of course, I'm looking around at all the old
Yeah,
stuff, the
yeah.
things in the window, and I was a little distracted by all the artifacts, shall
Yes.
we say, that were there, including his amazing car, which is this
Oh, man.
enormous... I don't know what it was. It was a Plymouth, but it looked like a Zeppelin or something.
Oh, wow.
And it would just get moved to go on either side of the street to avoid street cleaning,
Yeah.
whatever. But I went in and I said I wanted some construction boots. And he, you know, went and got a construction boot for me, and I tried it on. I said, I'll take it. And then I just said, I just need to get, you know, the left foot too. It wasn't, you know, there was only
Oh,
one in
okay.
the box.
Yeah.
So he went ahead and he reached in the window and pulled out a lefty. And it, you know, I put it on and I could feel something. It was really hard. It probably had been in the
sunlight.
window for a long time.
Yeah.
And then the other issue, it was about 10 shades lighter than the right foot. And I did buy them.
Oh, you
I
did?
did buy
All
them.
right.
I got a deal, but it was, I knew it'd make a good story sometime.
Right,
So I
right,
guess
right.
this is
Here
that
it is.
moment. The shoes did not make it into the collection.
Right.
And eventually, it became, you know, an estate.
Yeah.
Sam moves on.
Yeah.
And the museum was lucky enough to be around when they closed things down. And I had a fun time roaming around rescuing different advertising pieces. There was a lot of stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
There really
It
was.
really was,
In fact,
yeah.
in the basement, you actually had stacks of horse collars, which I
Wow.
guess leather goods, you know,
Okay.
they might have sold horse collars. But it turns out the Koselleck brothers also had a store originally on First Street,
Yeah.
according to the advertising.
Yeah, yeah.
And then moved to 10th and Bloomfield.
Right.
Which was probably, like a big move.
A big fancy
But
move, yeah.
when I moved to Hoboken in 1981, and I'm sure, some of you are from that era, Koselleck's was one of those stores that you just were so glad which was still here, and you would
right.
just go, I love this town.
That's true.
That's my Koselleck story.
Excellent. All right, so what's next from you?
Let's see, I'm gonna step out of frame for a second.
Well, you're still in frame.
I'm still in frame? Okay, we got a wide angle lens,
Wide
that's
angle,
good.
yeah.
I think every week we've kind of shouted out to Justin Silverman for many of the donations
That's right.
he's given us this year.
Yep.
And we're still absorbing them all, and
Yep.
Eventually we'll get them online.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the nice items that he gave was this guitar. And I'm not a guitar guy or a music guy, so I am winging it on this.
Okay.
Again, I mentioned before the guitar bar, James Mestro. James would probably be, I didn't talk to him about it, but I'm
Right.
sure he is an expert on Guild.
Right.
And why Guild? Well, it turns out Guild was manufactured here in Hoboken for a period of time.
Right.
Where? In the Newman Leather building at 300 Observer Highway.
All right then.
So Newman Leather was a company that started in the 1860s, but that's a whole zip code, that complex.
Yeah.
So they would sublet space, and Guild was there. I'm going to check my notes here. I wrote up a few
hold on.
things. You want to
Yeah.
hold that?
Yep.
Guild Guitar was originally manufactured in New York City. It was a spin-off of another company,
Okay.
and they started in 1952 in New York. I'm
Oh.
sorry, I'm going to restate that. They started late 40s, early 50s in New York, but then needed more space. So they sublet space in the Newman Leather
Got it.
building, and they came here in 1952. I really feel bad. I may be off a few years on that. So let's say 56. So is when they're really in Newman Leather.
Okay.
And then they're here for 10 years. And they get bought out by another company. They were apparently like a competitor to Martin Guitar.
Right.
Martin probably had the bigger name, I'm going
Right.
to guess.
Right.
But they were players. They were players.
Yep.
And of course, you always want to date things. And we can't really show it to you now, but when you go into whatever you call this, the little sound cutout, there is a decal. I don't think you'd see it unless you saw a light. Turns out this is a model T1000B, and the serial number is 182.19. And according to going online, you can, look at different Guild websites. There are people who
Right.
collect these,
Yep.
people who still play with them.
Yep.
And this is from around 1962. It is electric, and they really, it's very thin.
Yeah,
Okay, very
very light.
comfortable to
Yeah, very
hold,
comfortable.
very light.
Yep.
I believe the wood
Don't
is
hit the
maple.
mic, Rand.
It's missing a fret on the bottom. You can see the shadow from it.
Yeah.
And people still buy these vintage guitars and play with them. If you go to the guitar bar on First Street and 11th Street, but I think of First Street having a lot in the window,
Yeah.
I'll see Guild guitars for
Right.
sale. They can really range from 1,000 to maybe 3,000. Again, don't quote me on that. But if you have a Guild, don't put it out on recycling night.
Right.
Donate it to the museum.
That's right.
Like Justin did.
It's cool that it says Guild Guitars Incorporated, Hoboken, New Jersey.
It definitely
on the label
does.
In there.
Yes, yeah.
That's really fun.
And they do move out of Hoboken in '66. I'm forgetting where they went, but they needed a larger facility, and these companies get bought out, and it's not that uncommon.
Right.
I at one point rented space in Newman Leather. I was on the second floor, one
Right.
of the spaces, and in the floor, there was like a section of tiles that had been just like the glue was really sloppy,
Oh.
and all these guitar inlay pieces had fallen on the floor and were, in a sense, fossilized
Oh, wow.
in the epoxy. So I always
Okay.
felt that Guild, was on the second floor, but there may have been other places.
Right.
And if you look, it's kind of fun, if you look at old Guild guitar advertisements in the 1960s, you'll see that they would have different people, like Johnny Smith, who's a big jazz guitarist, I believe. He would show up at the Guild factory, and they would give him a guitar, and he would promote it, and they would take a picture of him, sort of like hitching a ride. He's at the bus stop on Observer Highway, right by Newman Leather.
Oh, that's great.
And he's got his guitar and his cowboy hat on, or whatever. And it's sort of like, you can't even see the train station, but you know the vista.
Sure.
And so they were using that as a promotional thing.
Funny.
And there are quite a few prominent musicians who would have owned guilds. I have down, and I'm not sure if it's just from the Hoboken years, but throughout the years, Joan Baez, Judy Collins, John Denver, and they do say that Guild really capitalized on blues and sort of the folk tradition that was really big in the 1960s. Cool. Apparently one of the Beatles had a 12-string Guild. This is just a traditional 6. Right. Eric Clapton was also another Guild guy. Again, these people owned like a zillion guitars, so it's not like they were exclusive Guild, but we always like to think of a strong music tradition in Hoboken with Maxwell's and indie music, and to think that we also had a prominent manufacturer such as Guild here is kind of cool. Yeah. Again, this is sort of an upgrade from the ukulins that we discussed in previous weeks. This is a real guitar.
Yeah.
And people, if you learned on a Guild, you're very loyal to Guild. You can be, yeah. And you could go online, look at different YouTube videos, and people will talk about their Guild guitar, kind of like a family member. Yeah. And they're very, they're very particular to that. Anyway, so thank you, Justin Silverman, for the Guild.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put this on the side.
You should get it so that it's playable and put that riser in there or whatever.
Yeah.
What else? Where are we? It's 7:47. It's almost time. Anybody have any questions? Please feel free to ask questions.
Anyone have some donations? Paul, what do you got? Paul the Champion has donated many items to the museum. Again. A shout out to Paul.
Yes, and I think Lois and Ellen are around.
Okay.
I don't know who else, but here's a fun one. This is, I think, from Justin as well. Excuse me.
Nicely framed.
Nicely framed clam broth house menu with, cocktails for 25 cents and clams. You can get some steamers for 10 cents.
10 cents. Wow. Wow.
So, it's just it's a great piece with, just cool to see prices from years gone by at the clam broth house.
Sure. I mean, many times when you got into a conversation with someone about Hoboken, they would talk about the clam broth house. Of course, the clam broth house doesn't exist anymore, but I liken it to let's say someone like Carlos, and you could be in another part of the world or another part of the country.
That's right.
And they would bring up, I love the clam broth house. They would remember the sawdust on the floor. They would talk about the separate entrance for men and women.
Right.
Apparently, it was one of the last bars in the country that would not allow women into the bar. And we do have pictures in our collection from Carolyn Carlson of women in the 1970s,
early 70s,
who are boycotting and holding up, posters about, equal rights for women. Let us in the clam broth house.
We need those steamers.
That's right.
So just as an addition to the clam broth house story, we have this framed montage of mostly 8x10 glossies of movie stars. Edward G. Robinson, Betty Grable, Katharine Hepburn, Hedy Lamarr, that's Hedy, please, get it right. And Elvis, but
Who's this?
that would be Arturo?
I think so,
Yes,
yes.
Arturo Pelaez, who was the owner of the Clambroth House, and I think his daughter, and we have no idea who these guys are. So it's something that clearly was very strongly screwed or nailed into the wall, probably behind a bar at the Clambroth House.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
we've
people would
all
do
been
that.
in delicatessens in New
Yeah,
York or
that's right.
restaurants, and they want to, give the impression that all these people dine there, and
Right.
you're in a classy place,
Right.
and so on. We don't really know if any of these people
No, we have
really ate there. And in my mind, they probably didn't.
Yeah.
Normally, you would have like a picture personalized,
Right.
like Arturo. We
Right.
love the steamers.
Yeah.
But we don't have any of that.
And
So-
if Edward G. Robinson came in that shirt, I think that'd be a problem.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyhow,
So-
it's something cool in the collection,
Right.
a little offbeat and
Sure.
odd and fun.
I think our best connection would be Beverly Hans, wife of Jim Hans, founder
Yes.
of the museum. Beverly worked at the Clambroth House for years.
Oh wow!
And so she could verify if Edgar G. Robinson ever came in. And I know she has some good stories about Arturo.
Oh, I bet.
And his antics.
Oh wow!
So anyway, cool,
Yeah.
cool. And we have time for anything else? Or what do we got?
No, it's.
You want to do one more? One more?
Yeah, if we got.
What do we got? Okay,
Oh man! All right.
I'll make this short.
This is this is
so-
so good. This is the grand finale.
Not really, but it's a little like what's going on here. It's it's a tray that slides into a filing cabinet,
That's right.
and we probably have 20
Yeah.
trays.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what they are actual mug shots, and I'm going to have to go closer.
so-
Can I'm just trying to
That's
see
as
if
good
we
as it's
actually
gonna
see
get.
it.
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay, can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so these are mug shots from the Hoboken Police Department. In the old days, we did a lot of dumpster diving.
Yep.
It's before we actually had a physical museum, and sort of miss those days. But one of the things we did acquire, long story, is the mug shots. The police department was getting out of the police department in City Hall. They were moving over to a
right.
new facility.
Right.
It was the former Longshoreman Medical
headquarters.
Center.
Oh, okay, right.
And so the basement of City Hall was flooding and wasn't up to code.
Right.
And so they got rid of a lot of stuff. And the police department does have a museum on the second floor, but it is hard to get access to it. So these are mug shots. And in the day, if you had your mug shot taken, you were arrested, you were also photographed with your hat. In the day, everyone wore a hat.
Everybody wore hats.
Yeah.
They needed to know.
So you needed to, sort of be able to identify
Present
them
your
either
public
way.
self. Yes.
Exactly. So, they're pretty interesting. Now, in addition to the mug shots,
Yes.
there are boxes and boxes of arrest records.
Yes.
And so these have a date on them, and there's also male, and there's female. Mm-hmm. There's definitely racial profiling in some of these. They haven't broken into different groups. But they are dated, and then there's a catalog number. So these envelopes have contents of the actual arrest.
Right.
And of course, 90% of these are for drunkenness or rowdiness.
That's right.
Okay, so
Yes.
nothing old,
changed.
nothing new. Okay, it's the same old story. The difference is, people don't wear hats
You had to
anymore.
wear your
They
hat.
just-
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, they leave their hat. So I like the fact that these guys, many of them arrested for being drunk, and they still have their hat. That's right. Okay, so they never took it off apparently.
Yes.
But anyway, someday we hope to do an exhibit with our mug shots. And there are other. The contents are very interesting of these envelopes. the photographs are interesting to a degree also
Right.
on there. A lot of pickpockets, prostitution,
Yeah.
a lot of bar incidents, I'll
Yes,
say.
yes.
So that's the mugshot. So I guess I'll just leave you with that one.
There you
A little
go.
hard to
Ooh.
show these
It is.
on
Well,
there.
that's true,
On there.
yeah.
But the hat thing is kind of a nice motif.
yeah.
And there's actually a name for this type of cataloging.
Oh, okay.
Even the filing system.
Sure, sure.
It's almost like an archivist
Yep,
kind of
yep.
approach
Somebody had a
to
patent.
mugshots.
Yeah.
There is actually a patent.
Yep.
And if you look at old Elliot Ness movies,
Yes.
they always pull
Little
these
doodles.
out to have the
Yeah,
guy
take a look,
identified.
see if you know
yeah.
this guy, yeah.
Recognize anyone?
Yeah.
You know, and they pull out the slide drawer and then they shove it back
That's
in
right,
and so
right,
on and so
right,
on.
right.
So anyway, they're in pretty good shape
They are in
too.
very good shape.
They really were just in, in a light, tight kind of environment
Yes.
and have held up pretty good.
Yes.
So
And
should we
that
top
is-
it out
that-
there? We
that's
don't want
it.
to show all our artifacts
That's right.
at once.
Thank you, everybody,
Sure.
for stopping by. Taylor
Definitely.
and Lois and Richard Green stopped
Richard
by.
Green, all right, Richard Green.
Thanks.
Okay, we hope we get to go holiday caroling this year. Richard stopped in with his friends the other day. And
Oh,
we were
yeah?
talking about that.
All right.
You know,
Well, hopefully.
so I'm going to wear my face shield. Okay.
Okay.
So cool. Anyway,
pleasure.
thank you very much.
Very good.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll see you. Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you,
See you in 2
everybody.
weeks.
We're gonna go.
Spread the word.
All right.
We recorded this if you want to send anyone there.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's going to take me a second.